From the Oregon State University's Extension Service, you are listening to In the Woods with the Forestry and Natural Resources Program. This podcast brings the forest to listeners by sharing the stories and voices of forest scientists, land managers, and enthusiastic members of the public. Each episode, we will bring you research and science-based information that aims to offer some insight into what we know and are still learning about forest science and management. Stick around to discover a new topic related to forests on each episode.
Welcome back to the In the Woods podcast presented by the Forestry and Natural Resources Extension Program at Oregon State University. I'm Scott Leavengood, Extension Specialist in Wood Products, and I have the pleasure this episode of talking with a couple leaders in Oregon's forest products industry, both of whom I've had the pleasure of knowing for several decades. Our guests are Ryan Temple with Sustainable Northwest Woods and Ben Deunling with Xena Forest Products. And both of them played key roles in the main terminal upgrade at the Portland International Airport, or as most Northwesterners know it, simply PDX. So let's start with some introductions. I'll start with you, Ryan. I think we first met when you were with the Healthy Forests, Healthy Communities Partnership, but for quite a few years now, you've been with Sustainable Northwest Wood as president and founder, in fact. So tell us a bit about those organizations and what led you to create Sustainable Northwest Wood.
Yeah, that's right, Scott. I think I moved here in 2000. I think we met probably fairly shortly after that. Moved out from the Forest Stewards Guild, where I was working in New Mexico, to work for Sustainable Northwest, managing their Healthy Forest, Healthy Communities Partnership. It was a network of about 40 or so different sawmills, mostly smaller family-owned businesses scattered across the Northwest. And the idea of the network was to find ways to support those rural businesses through technical assistance, small grants programs, networking, marketing, branding. But at the end of the day, one of the things we found was, as much, I think, as those businesses appreciated the type of support that a nonprofit organization like Sustainable Northwest could offer, what they really needed was somebody to buy their wood. In other words, all of the support is fantastic, but if we're not selling what we're making, nothing else really matters. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, we started toying with the idea of creating a for-profit subsidiary, because it didn't really seem like any of the other lumber yards in the region were committed to stocking product from these businesses. They were okay bringing it on a special order business, but we really wanted the local products from small producers to be available just as readily as anything else. And so in 2008, we started Sustainable Northwest Wood. It was a little bit of a gamble. Sort of the conventional wisdom was, if this was a good idea, somebody would have already done this before. But of course, one can see the flaw in that. Innovation would never occur if there wasn't a willingness to take a little bit of a risk. So we started Sustainable Northwest Wood in 2008. So what's that mean? 17 years under our belt. Wow. We're still here. And there's about 50 different mills across the Northwest that supply our lumber yard. Literally anything that you can imagine from the Pacific Northwest probably flows through this warehouse, but we try and specialize in products that that aren't in the mainstream. Northwest hardwoods would be a great example, right? Our madrones, our myrtle woods, our Oregon white oaks that aren't readily available on the shelf. Let's bring those things to market. Juniper would be another great example we can talk about a little bit later. But one common thread that runs through them is, in addition to all being local, we try and celebrate the people, the places, and the forest that they come from. So we're really looking for folks who are committed to the communities and committed to being good stewards of their land and the long haul. So some people say, isn't it challenging to run a business like that? And the opposite is true. If we didn't have those sorts of values, then we would just be one more lumberyard out there and have no real competitive reason to be.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I had no idea. I think if you'd asked me to guess, I would have said probably 10 years ago. But yeah, 17 years. Yeah. Still going strong, huh?
Still
kicking. All right, shifting to you now, Ben. Your website lists you as president, creator, and purveyor of big ideas for Xena Forest Products. And I guess I can attest to the big ideas part, given the number of years we've worked together. And with you turning ideas into new products and having us at OSU put them through their paces through testing. Before we get to the part about the Portland Airport here, tell us a bit about Xena Forest Products.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for having me on. And Brian and I both, this is fun. It's a fun opportunity to talk about this. And so in some ways, Brian and I both started our businesses around the same time. Officially started Xena Forest Products in 2007, but it really is an outgrowth of this patch of family forest land that we've always had. Where I grew up, it's this patch of forest in the middle of the Willamette Valley. It's got a lot of non-traditional species on it, not just Douglas fir. It's got a lot of Oregon oak, big leaf maple, some Oregon ash. And in the early 2000s, we were really trying to figure out, what do we do with this material? There was no infrastructure. There was no industry in Oregon to buy, purchase, process, manufacture anything out of these species. And Ryan, I appreciated your line, Ryan, about, well, if no one's done this, what are we missing? We started building our own manufacturing infrastructure to initially saw our own logs, and very quickly that word got out that we were sawing Oregon oak, and the phone started ringing, people wanting to find a home for their oak logs and maple logs. And we've slowly grown ever since. And as the forests of Oregon have changed over the decades, as my understanding about woods and technology has changed, we've leaned more and more into being a resource and a business that can support complex forest management. The future of our forests really require complexity and resilience, and growing forests that have more than just one species in them. And if you're going to have a forest with more than one species, you need to have markets for more than one species of tree. And so that's really where we've tried to innovate, come up with interesting products, and products that are workable, that we can make out of all these different trees and types of trees, not just the tall, straight trees, but the crooked trees, the narrow trees, the small diameter trees that really need to be harvested in service of a complex and resilient forest landscape. And through that end, we've had a lot of fun over the years innovating and coming up with new products. And really huge testament and thank you to you, Scott, for being a key ally all along the way, fielding my crazy questions and letting me use some of the resources you have in your testing facilities down at OSU. And I think now is probably the first time in maybe almost a decade I don't actually have any wood in your chambers right now. we have more in the pipeline that I want to bring down. So that's a little bit of where we've been. And we really focus on flooring. Of all the different products we've tried and made and worked with over the years, it always comes back to flooring is the key driver of our business and the best fit for the species that grow here in Oregon, and make some things along with it, stair treads and trim and some paneling, but that's all in service to the flooring. And yeah, we'll talk more detail as we go on about the different kinds of flooring we make.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Thank you to you both. And for our listeners here to understand it, we're setting the context here as far as this diverse range of species that are available in the Northwest and the ability to buy local. And so that sets the context, if you will, for the main focus of this episode, which is the recent renovations to PDX. Anyone who's had a chance to be in the airport in recent months knows that the wow factor is really there. In fact, we've got some interns this summer that just started last week from, I think, 6 different countries. All of them have come here through the Portland airport, and they were all talking with me about it just last week, saying how amazing and incredible the airport is. And so there's wood pretty much everywhere you look there at Portland Airport. And can you talk about the impetus for this design and at what stage you got involved? And I think we could start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, I got involved probably about, 8 years ago, I think. So I really started having conversations 4 or 5 years before product was needed for the airport. And while it seemed like way early, I think it's really important and a key lesson that those conversations began that early for a project of this magnitude. Early on, I think the conversations were about metal versus wood, steel, all right? And both in the aesthetics and the framing and the infrastructure and all of that, the roof. And a lot of folks felt like wood just would not be up to the task. ZGF, the architect, I think played a key role in saying, and the port in their commitment to wood, saying, nope, we're gonna make this happen. We can do it with wood. And then at that point, they chose to raise the bar a little bit further, as if the wood itself wouldn't be challenging enough. They said, we want all that wood to be local. And that's not that hard. We're in the Pacific Northwest, right? This is the wood place. We can get wood locally here. So we checked that box pretty quickly. Then they said, we want all this wood to come from well-managed forest. That opens up a big conversation. Well-managed forest, right? Sustainability, ecological forestry. It's not a bright line. It's a spectrum. But there again, they heard that we can get you wood from the state of Oregon, state of Washington, and it's all meeting the Forest Practices Act, which is a really good thing that we've got that. And everybody nodded their head in agreement. Yes, the Forest Practices Act are a good thing, but we think that there's some landowners out there who are looking to innovate a little bit further. They're looking to push that envelope a little bit more. What can we do to incentivize and recognize them? And not just have it be about a single certification system, but really looking for tribes, community forests, family forests, public forests, whole host of ownerships, different objectives, but all aligned and trying to raise the bar and doing the best possible forestry that we can have out there. At that point, people say, I don't know. Now you're really asking a lot. We were one of the few voices in the room that said, hey, these people are out there. The forest managers, the mills buying their logs are out there. We can make this happen. We can make it happen locally. And we'll even give you one more. Not only can we have it come from this forest, but we can trace it back to the forest. So at the end of the day, not only do you know that this supported good forestry and communities, but you can really say which forest, which communities, which families, which businesses. And anybody who's been through the airport know that once they knew this was a possibility, really embraced that concept because it's become very much all about storytelling. Not just that there's a positive impact, but that positive impact is very real for real people. It's that evolution of thinking, beginning with a fairly simple concept of let's do it with wood, but then begin asking that evolution, what more? What next? What else can we do to innovate here? Which made it just a really fun project to be involved in.
Maybe a little complication in there as well, huh? In the supply chain.
Learning curve.
Yeah. So
Bumps along the road, but they pulled it off.
yeah, the storytelling, yeah. And yeah, just being able to link it back to the forest. I've seen stories in the news about that, which is pretty unique. How about you, Ben? What would you add to what Ryan just shared there about your involvement?
Yeah, similar to Ryan, I think it was
We've got a frozen
May of 26 of this project. And so it's been a long run and we're still working on it. Phase 2 is still underway. 2016 was when we started the conversations and it's been a long run. And similar to Ryan's story, we were focused very much on hardwoods and the flooring. Early on, the conversation was we want to put wood in this building. And my advice was if you're going to do wood, you should do Oregon oak. And if you're going to do Oregon oak, you should do flooring. And just because oak is just one of the key species here in Western Oregon, at least, and so incredibly dense and durable and such a good fit for that. But again, like Ryan said, we have to prove it out. Is wood actually going to work? Is it going to hold up in a space like this? And we ended up actually putting in some test floor patches years prior to construction that they put right in front of the rope lines at security for every single person to walk over for 3 years to just prove out this wood will work, will hold up.
Yeah,
absolutely. And again, like Ryan said, we got in early, which meant so many things were possible. We had the time to do that kind of R&D, which you don't normally have on a project. And I had the time to work with you, Scott, on a lot of testing for down in your facilities to test some things about the woods and the floor, how well it's going to work. We had that time, but I think really driven by the port and ZGF, there was this determination to showcase Oregon and to not only have traceable local material that had a compelling story, but they were very interested in being an economic driver in the state. This is the largest public works project in Oregon history. They knew that they were going to have an impact. Fun fact, largest public works project with zero public dollars. It's fully paid for with airline fees. So it's a public project paid for with private dollars, which gave them a unique opportunity to do things that you can't on many projects. And they, by investing in Xena, in us as a small business, and saying, look, we are going to buy a floor from you guys. It was huge. That was at that point in the early days of Renovation, that was 2 years of our production was in one project. And that gave us the confidence to invest, to grow, to build capacity for this project and come out the other sides stronger for it. And not just us as a company stronger for it, but we are now one more key piece in the wood products industry in Oregon that didn't exist before at that scale. And so the port, there's dozens of stories where the port and ZGF, like they knew what they were doing, going above and beyond to invest in small local businesses. And those dividends are just continuing to pay off over time. And I can go into more detail, Ryan and I both, about the particular products we made, but that's a little bit of a backstory of sort of our role in that and the huge impact that their project had on the state of Oregon.
Oh, yeah, that's really interesting. I have to say that despite some of the peripheral involvement, I had no idea some of the backstory there. And then the fact that it had been that many years ago, talk almost 10 years of conversations to get to this point. But yeah, dreaming big sometimes it takes a little while, huh? Ben, you just shared the stat about the biggest public works project ever, but can you, either of you, maybe off the top of your head, do you know like amount of wood used, number of species, the radius from where it was harvested in terms of miles? A lot to ask maybe to come from memory, but yeah.
Ryan, why don't you start with that? I think you have a bigger picture of I can speak particularly to our role, but you have a bigger picture on that, I feel like.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones, connecting really about us to you in Corvallis, 83 miles of 3x6. So if you were to take all the 3x6 lattice work in that roof and place those boards end to end, I think that would pretty well get me from Portland to Corvallis without having to step off one of those 3x6s to get there. This is an awful lot of wood, but that 3x6 lattice work came from 11 different family forests, 3 of those being tribes, community forests, family forests, some of them FSC certified, all of them in Washington or Oregon. Species used, I'm assuming that the plywood is just fir in the core, and if I'm right about that, then I think only 2 species actually went into the airport, a narrow palette. Which is another, we can talk about that, the pros and cons of that approach, but actually relatively few species. And so in order to try and diversify the impact, there's really a conscientious effort to even reach across different ecoregions. Let's make sure that some of that Doug fir is coming from the east side, from way up in the northeast corner of Wallowa County, right? Let's distribute that impact as best we can, knowing that we're just working with a limited palette of species on it.
Interesting, yeah. And the other one is Oregon white oak, is that right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Lots of it. And so not all from Xena, but the floors came from Xena. And again, we it didn't all come out of our own forest. We sourced from forests throughout the Willamette Valley. And that needs to track and trace, to document the sourcing of it was challenging even for a mill at our scale, where we keep very close tabs on where our wood comes from. But once it goes into our pool and runs through the sawmill, it gets commingled with everything else. And so we employed some tricks to figure out how much actually came out of our forest and how we were able to track more closely than normal this particular material. But it all came from a 60-mile radius of here. And we're just west of Salem, and we're 60 miles south of the airport. So it all came from right here. And for us, interestingly, it coincided with the big 2021 ice storm that we had in February here in the Salem area that really severely damaged a lot of our forest. And so it just so happened that those salvage efforts happened around the same time of needing the wood for the airport. So and not just from our forest, but from forests throughout the area. So a lot of the woods in the airport is actually salvaged from the 2021 ice storm that we had.
Wow. Okay. I think you both touched on this a little bit already, but what were some of the challenges that you faced in this project? If not your companies directly, challenges that you were made aware of as suppliers of materials? For example, I saw mention of the opaque nature of the forest products industry supply chain and things like business as usual, for example. So we could start with you, Ben, on this one.
I mean, the big challenge for us was we ended up developing a brand new product that's for this floor. And because we've been having conversations for so long, we were trying to figure out how do you put a wood floor in a space like this, in a very large format space with a whole lot of traffic that then has to interface with carpet and terrazzo seamlessly. And for a long time, we were working with a tongue and groove product, which we were more familiar with. That was what we've been doing for many years. For a lot of technical reasons, that was going to be challenging. And we kept running into problems with wood movement, with transitions, with supply chains. And I pivoted in the midst of COVID and pitched what we call our edge grain tile to the project team, which is a completely new type of flooring that's never been made in North America before. And it was fairly common in Europe, but we took that idea and modified it for our species in this region and pitched that to the architects, the builder, and the port. And they loved it and said, yes, we want to do this. And then I had the job of figuring out how to make it. And so I didn't really tell them when I pitched it to them that I didn't actually fully know how to make it. And so we, in short order, figured out how to tool up and build a new facility, purchase a whole bunch of new machinery, and build an assembly line for our edge grain flooring tiles. And it was a huge challenge. It was a monumental challenge to scale up this kind of production in the midst of COVID and innovate a brand new product for a very large customer and make sure we weren't going to screw it up.
Mm-hmm. No pressure.
But we prevailed and it worked. And for us, the icing on the cake really was this was a win. It was a technical win for the floor in this space that was going to work really well and perform well. It was a win though for us in when we manufacture flooring, everybody wants wide boards and long boards. And what do you do with the small pieces of wood? What do you do with the small diameter trees? The other half of the tree and the other half of the forest that's hard to merchandise. And our edge grain tile, which is composed of the little 3/4 inch stick of wood held together with wire, that was a way for us to utilize so much more of the resource. And now gives us the ability to really support a lot more restoration work throughout the states with this technology. That again, the port didn't buy the machines for us. We made that investment, but having a project of this scale gave us the confidence to invest in this facility. And coming out the other side, we have this facility and we can now make this at scale for more customers. And so it was an exciting project. It was pretty stressful at times, but it worked. And we really had very few hiccups along the way. And I think the floor is testament that things worked. It's performing incredibly well and really exceeding all of our expectations.
And that's a cool story too, that through this, you're able to make better utilization of a really unique resource. The little pieces that often just get thrown in the chipper and who knows what happens to them. They don't go to a highest and best use for sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Ryan? Challenges?
Yeah, I'll maybe drop them into 3 categories: timing, segregation, and pricing, and then talk about the role that Sustainable Northwest Wood played as a buffer in those. On the timing, I think intuitively most people say, oh, it was the problem getting all the wood to them in time for the job. Really, one of the problems they ran into more was having wood available too soon. When they would pinpoint a specific forest and say, hey, we want wood. We love what that forest is doing. Richard Denatahanchi, we want their wood. It's okay. They're harvesting now. It's a small family forest. They might not harvest again for 5 years. And you don't need the wood for 3 years. So how do we, I'm planning this far ahead if you want to do that. And so literally going to get them do that harvest and then slowing that wood through the system as much as we could after the harvest occurred But eventually, we as a distributor, taking on the stocking inventory of that, saying, we're going to hold this product here that's ready that you need. You might not need it for another year or two, but we know this is what you want. And so we're going to do that for you. And there were times also when, like this forest, it's not going to harvest until 2 months before your project. And so we're going to have to accelerate that one through
Wow.
the system.
Wow.
So timing and all the aspects of that was an issue. And it just required a lot of coordination, communication, and in some cases, holding inventory until they were ready for it. The segregation piece, I think for the mills, that was the larger mills especially, that was a bit of a challenge. It's something that we do at Sustainable Northwest Wood all the time because we're very much about the storytelling. Like, this bulk of wood came from this place and we're going to hold it and inventory and have that knowledge embedded in it. It's just, I think, Scott, most sawmills, and Ben referred to this in terms of even how they buy Oregon white oak. You buy the logs, it comes in, it gets mixed up in the system, and then it goes out the door, and you don't really know exactly where anything came from. So getting the mills to set up a different log deck and batch run it so that they could talk about where that wood came from was an ask. And it required some of the sawmills to do things a little bit differently than they normally did. And they were willing to do it because there was an opportunity there. It was large, it was significant. There was economic incentive for them. And I think they're also we're willing to do it because the mills and the forest owners, managers, loggers all came to realize that the port was really had set out to celebrate them and their work. And I'll come right out and say it. And it's an industry that's not celebrated often. Sometimes it's put through the ringer and get given a black eye from time to time. And so I think having this urban constituency say, we really want to provide praise and the accolades for the hard work that goes into your industry, made them say, well, that's fantastic. We're willing to do things a little bit differently than we might otherwise to allow that to happen. And it just created a great partnerships and relationships that go on today because of that sort of mutual respect and understanding. Pricing is the last one. All of this happened, was peaked right during that COVID period when lumber markets were going crazy.
Oh, right.
And when you had something that was bid a year ago and all of a sudden the lumber is 2x, 3x what its pricing was, you had projects, you had budgets. And again, at Sustainable Northwest Wood, we were able to provide a bit of a buffer on that because of the early purchasing. We'd actually brought wood into inventory at some of those lower prices. And so even though the lumber market's gone crazy, our cost of goods sold on it was relatively modest. We didn't take advantage of where lumber markets were at that time. We said we had an agreement with you. We know where lumber markets are, but we kind of hedge and buffer this for you and try and stabilize that pricing piece for you. I think pricing is always an issue when you have a long-term time frame on a project like that, but it's maybe especially complex when they have these other layers and requirements placed on the wood. They just can't shift and say, all right, go get it from another source now. They'd committed themselves to a source and a story. And so we also committed ourselves to them and delivering a timely product on budget.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like you might have needed a warehouse about as big as the Portland airport there to house all that material for a little while there. Huh?
And this is where partnerships is so important. And so we, everybody along the supply chain, even if it was our money that was tied up in it, people along the supply chain helped out with space.
Yeah. Cool.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah. Teamwork still matters, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What sort of feedback have you received? So I'm thinking here in particular, has anyone contacted you for advice? Maybe another major airport wanting to do something similar or anything anywhere else around the country, around the world, even that says, this is a cool story. Let's talk to these guys. They know how to make this work.
Yeah. Yes. Having your materials in the Portland airport is a fantastic calling card. It's highly visible. And the port has done an incredible job of storytelling and of trying to tell the story of the local woods and where it came from and why. So that's been incredibly valuable for us as a business. And the answer is yes. We are talking with other airports. We have one anecdote. We had an architect fly through the airport here a couple months ago, and she works in the Midwest, designs high schools, and now she really was like, this is amazing. Let's put this floor in the next high school I design. So those sorts of things are happening. And I feel incredibly fortunate and honored to be able to be part of this project. And as a result, then reap the benefits of having our material in such a incredible space.
Yeah,
And just
absolutely.
so much celebration around that. Everybody is almost there. There's lots of positive feelings around that. And it's been really wonderful for us.
So you become the unofficial consultant for anybody else wanting to do something similar, huh?
I'm a wood geek. And so the learning that went into this has just helped me communicate better with customers going forward about woods and different applications and where it can work well and where it doesn't. And it's just a continuous learning journey for me about wood and wood technology and wood science. So it's been really fun.
Awesome. How about you, Ryan? What sort of feedback are you hearing?
Ditto everything that Ben said, that the storytelling is, people who come to appreciate that and know that it's possible, that it's compelling. That's always been a core piece of our business. So it's fantastic for us that folks are also seeing the value in it. But I think one of the game changers that the airport created was that I took that to scale, right? And we've always worked with homeowners or smaller commercial projects who will buy a few thousand board feet of something for the project and do that storytelling around it. But I have a hunch that there's always this assumption that was always a niche boutique sort of thing, but it's not something you could do on a large public works, big scale commercial
For sure.
project.
Yeah.
And the airport has proven that's not true. There are, and this is where I will give up our dirty little secret here at Sustainable Northwest Wood, is we don't do a whole lot. We rely on other folks who do a whole lot. We're a distribution yard, and our power is the power of these businesses and our ability to aggregate everything that they do into a single place that makes it readily available in the marketplace. And so suddenly, if we're working with a couple small mills and places who might not be able to do a big project like that, by aggregating them here, then we open up that possibility in a way that previously might not have seemed possible. And yeah, the airport, the power of story is something that's definitely resonating with folks. I think people want to replicate, but also, as they say at the airport, making the impossible possible, right? The assumption was like, this can't be done, and proving that it can be done has been huge in terms of not just the impact for this project, but the impact that its dividend is paying now and into the future as well.
Oh, yeah.
For
sure.
so many different businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, the economies of scale there that you help make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like final official question anyway. Common question that people are asked when they are involved in such a major undertaking. If you had to do all over again, what would you do differently? We'll start with Ryan.
Yeah. And I'll borrow on something that Ben said that I really resonates with me, which is if you want to have diverse forest, then you need to have diverse products, right? Our forests are going to grow. They are managed forests. They will grow what people want to consume. I get it that the airport and the designers like this notion of a limited palette. We're going to have 2 species in there, the Oregon white oak and the Doug fir. And if I had to choose just 2, probably would have been those 2.
Mm-hmm.
But both for the purposes of this project and the ability to distribute benefits further, take what was probably a fairly intense pressure off of just a couple of things on a very limited time frame, distribute that a little bit more. But more importantly, in terms of showcasing the possibilities for the future, I would have loved it if the project also had some juniper, some madrone, some ash, or, a few other species in there, both for the benefits in that moment of time, but also for the benefits of promoting that greater diversity for an extended period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, until with this conversation, I hadn't realized it was that narrow palette, as you've called it. What about you, Ben? What would you do differently?
Oh, I don't know that I've got a great answer for this. Oh, it tells me my internet is there. Hopefully I'm back.
Hearing you
again.
okay, though. Yep.
Okay, good. I think if I was to do this over, I would have a lot more confidence and trust that we can do this. And I think I didn't realize just how phenomenal my team and network of partnerships was going to be. And yeah, I just going into that, I was pretty nervous. I was pretty apprehensive about something of this scale. And coming out the other side, a lot of confidence that we have a team and a set of partners that can take on the world. I was really impressed by how everybody involved in this stepped up and just did an incredible job. But yeah, I would also echo Ryan's point. Celebrating the diversity that Oregon has to offer is so important and something that I'm keenly interested in. Yeah, I would very much echo what Ryan had to say.
Good. All right. Now here, before we wrap up this episode, I have a few more questions for you in what we call the lightning round. And the first question is always, what is your favorite tree species? Ironically, we just talked tree species, but Ben, can I guess yours?
You sure can.
Is it Oregon white oak by
Oh,
any chance?
yeah, there is Quercus scariana. I mean, there's so many interesting species in Oregon. It's hard to pick one, but Oregon oak just stands out as an incredible tree for so many reasons. And from its ability to grow anywhere, and honestly, being the most climate resilient species we have on the West Coast, to its properties of being incredibly dense and durable and beautiful
Hmm.
and good for so many different things. And just that iconic tree of the parks in Western Oregon. They all have big oak trees, and we
Yeah.
love they make amazing shade and they're beautiful to look at. And I can go on and on. Oregon oak's a great tree.
No argument for me here. How about you, Ryan? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, the love-hate favorite, almost the opposite of the Oregon white oak and all of its grandeur, is the juniper and all of its scrappiness. It's a native tree, but it has grown outside of its native range. But what I love about it is that the entrepreneurial spirit of Eastern Oregon has found a way to create opportunity out of this problem. When they're removing it for rangeland restoration work, taking advantage of its unique properties, drought resistance, and just creating this fantastic network of jobs that are restoration based in Eastern Oregon. And I love the fact that it's one of these few instances where you've got complete harmony in terms of what we should and ought to do, right? You've got ranchers and loggers and environmentalists and public land agencies and millers all thinking in unison of let's figure out how to manage this landscape. Let's figure out some great products we can make out of this juniper species. And yeah, I have a real in Eastern Oregon, it holds a special place in my heart. And in anything that can be done that's improving rangeland health and watershed health out in Eastern Oregon, I'm a fan of. Yeah, let's keep the great, big, beautiful old growth junipers and the rocky outcroppings where they belong. And then those that are marching down into the grasslands and degrading habitat, let's figure out opportunities of things to do with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I've heard it described, a win-win on that one. Here, another second question. What's a unique tool that you use that helps you with your work? That's a tough one, maybe, huh?
So I was thinking about this. I don't know that it's unique in any way, shape, or form, but it's pretty boring. But I'll be honest, the calculator on my phone and a Google spreadsheet, honestly, it's how I run my business every day.
That's funny.
It's
Yeah.
so much of my day and my decision making runs through those two tools. And it's pretty boring, but it's a key set of tools.
Yeah, absolutely. What did we do before we had those, right? Yeah. How about you, Ryan?
Oh, I've already mentioned it. For me, like the tools, maybe it's probably not a piece of equipment or it's not the software, but it's community, right?
Mm.
The reason, everything that allows us to exist, it all comes back to this network of partners and communities. So the extent that you could call them a tool, and some of them are tools, but that's it. That is the tool that I love and that makes us who we are.
Makes it all run. Yeah. Let's see. Lastly, here, what other resources can you share for a listener that'd like to learn more about what you do? And I think maybe here, particularly for the airport, are there some good places that people can go and find a bit more detail? What happened there? What's going on there?
I mean, there's pdxnext.com, which is the website that's focused on telling that story.
Okay.
A phenomenal job. So that's pdxnext.com.
All right. Writing that down. Got it.
And yeah, and I give public tours once a month out there at the airports. You can sign up on our website, on our events page. That's open to anybody. It's an hour-long tour. I'll walk you through the airport and tour through the whole place, and not just talk about the floors, but talk about all the elements. So
very cool. All right. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, a resource, I'd say, for anybody out there listening to this podcast, if you ever have a question, whether you're looking for a product, information, introductions, just general knowledge, reach out. Give us a call, go to our website to check it out. We're a business, right? We sell wood, but that's not what it's all about for us, right? That's what allows us to keep the doors open, which is what we really love to do, which is find a way to connect consumers with rural producers for the mutual benefit of all of them. And if we can help make that happen for anybody, we're here for you.
Fantastic. All right, gentlemen, thanks so much for spending some time with me today and for sharing your knowledge with our listeners. I'll allow you each here to say farewell.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. And
right.
It's fun to be on with both of you. If we all three go way back. And
exactly.
It's a lot of memories, a lot of history, and this has been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thanks,
absolutely, Ben. Ditto. It's always great sharing airtime with you. As many times as we get together and talk together, every time I hear you speak, Ben, I learn something new and I get inspired in a different way. So
likewise.
Always appreciate those opportunities. And thanks, Scott, for convening this moment, but also for being there for us. And that is the big us, all of us in the wood products industry across the state of Oregon for so many years.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that concludes another episode of OSU Forestry and Natural Resource Extension's In the Woods podcast series. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
The In the Woods podcast is produced by Lauren Grand, Jacob Putney, and Scott Leavengood, who are all members of the Oregon State University Forestry and Natural Resources Extension team. Other members of the team who have been involved in the podcast include Carrie Berger, Jason O'Brien, and Stephen Fitzgerald. Episodes are edited and produced by Carrie Cantrell. Music for In the Woods was composed by Jeffrey Heino, and graphic design was created by Christina Freihoff. Funding for In the Woods is provided by Oregon State University Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, the Oregon Forest Resources Institute, and the USDA Renewable Resources Extension Act funding. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we can't wait to talk to you again next month. Until then, what's in your woods?